Why don't you just get out of here? Go freeze in the yard, you stupid, useless old woman. I'm getting cold. Please unlock the door. My eldest son's wife was found in the yard the next morning, cold and shivering. My name is Lucy. I am a 60-year-old housewife, and my husband got sick and passed away several years ago. My son, Tom, his wife, Mary, and my grandson, Alan, now live with me. The unexpected death of my husband brought us together. But I felt like I was giving my son and his family enough space and not interfering with them. They thought that being too close would be suffocating for everyone. They did a lot of renovations to have as much privacy as possible. Mary is upbeat and social. She often socializes with a large group of friends. Maybe it was for the best that we rarely saw each other. Alan, my grandson, is in 4th grade. I occasionally look after Alan when she goes out. He is absolutely adorable. Tom is busy with work and works at night, so our schedules don't line up and I barely speak with him. Tom and Mary never fought, and they occasionally went out together, so to me, it didn't seem like their marriage had any major problems. Mary had many friends and hosted parties at her home a lot. She has kept in touch with her mom friends from Alex's kindergarten class, and they are all good friends. They would come over to our house once a week on Fridays and have a party. These parties always bothered me. They started in the evening and didn't end until late at night, with people drinking and being loud. Her friends' husbands would occasionally come over and get drunk too. They didn't care if Alan got sleepy or hungry, so Alan would come to my room a lot when he was bored. One time, an ambulance was called because a drunken friend of hers slipped and fell into glass and was covered in blood. Another time, a fight between couples became so heated that they were on the verge of calling the cops. It was always me who calmed Alan down and apologized to the neighbors the next day for causing a scene. Mary didn't want the parties to stop, and she looked forward to them every week. I considered talking to Tom about it, but since he worked the night shift on Fridays, he had never witnessed these parties. I didn't feel comfortable confronting him. I expressed my concerns about Alan to Mary once. "Don't you think they're a bit much? I don't want the police or an ambulance called. It's bad for Alan." "I'll look out for Alan on Fridays, so why don't you all go to a restaurant outside and drink responsibly?" "I'm not allowed to unwind? Living together stresses me out more than you know. Wouldn't you feel the same if you were in my shoes? Plus, going out to drink costs more money than doing it at home. I can't tell them they can't come here. You don't know how I feel." She was furious and refused to speak to anyone. Then there was one Friday. Alan was drowsy when he got home from school. He said he felt tired. I took his temperature, and he had a 100-degree fever. "Of all days, it's Friday. Everyone will be here soon, so why don't you go to your room and sleep so you don't bother us?" "Why don't you just cancel just for today?" I held back what I really wanted to say. "Then I'll watch Alan today. Is that all right, Mary?" But she refused, probably because she knew I was annoyed. "It's all right," she said. "I don't need you to be worried. We're not that loud. Why is it always the mom's fault when a kid gets sick?" I didn't mean to imply that it was her fault, but I had no choice but to say something. "If you start feeling bad, come to my room," I told Alan. "I have some TV shows we can watch tonight. I'm planning to stay up late." "Thanks, Grandma," he replied. "I'll be all right." I felt a little better, but it was still a significant day. I could hear them all being very loud from my room. I heard a faint knock on my door. I was worried about Alan. I rushed to open the door, and Alan was standing there. He said, "Can I spend the night with you?" He cried, "I can't sleep because my head hurts. Even when I cover my ears, it's so loud." I rushed him into the room and handed him a drink, which he drank in one gulp, most likely because he was thirsty. His hands felt hot, so I took his temperature, which had risen to 102. For the first time in a long time, I was fuming, but I resisted because taking care of Alan was more important than telling Mary off. Alan still had a fever the next morning and still looked sick as ever. Alan looks sick, so I think we should take him to the hospital this morning, I told her, because most hospitals only see patients in the morning on Saturdays. I told her, but she couldn't get out of bed, probably because she had been drinking late the night before. "Oh, don't worry. It'll get better soon. You'll be fine, right?" Mary said. "Alan?" She spoke in a sleepy tone, not even looking up from her bed. Alan responded, but he was clearly not fine. Alan has had asthma since he was a child, so he is prone to asthma attacks when he is sick. As I stood there watching him, fearful that he would have another attack, he started to wheeze, just as I had predicted. "Mary, I think Alan is having an asthma attack. Where is his medicine?" I asked, but Mary was sleeping through it and wouldn't say anything. "All right, I'm going to take him to the emergency room, okay?" I told her this several times before I took Alan to the hospital. I was able to get him back for inhalation and medication. I was so relieved to see Alan feeling better. When Mary woke up that evening, she exploded. "Don't be selfish. He didn't need to go to the hospital. How much did going to the emergency room cost you? I can't believe it. I tried to talk to you many times, but you drank too much and couldn't wake up. Can't you just stop drinking when Alan is sick? He was in a lot of pain." "Fever is common in kids, and it's already gone away, so it wasn't a big deal. Asthma flare-ups are also common. Don't be a jerk and spoil him just because he's your grandson." I thought I should tell Tom about it, so I did, but he said, "But Alan is fine, right?" He said, "Don't worry about a kid's cold. Mary is under a lot of stress about the living situation, so please be patient with her. I need you to take a step back because you live together." Message received. I couldn't say anything back when he talked about the stress of living together. Tom was hurt at work one day at the end of the year. He needed surgery and spent the week in a hospital. Tom spent the holidays and the end of the year there. "I'm thinking of spending this New Year's holiday at my parents' house for the first time in a while," Mary said one day. In the past, our family's New Year's holidays were spent cleaning up, eating our favorite comfort food, and dining out with my eldest daughter Emily and her family who live in the same city. I heard Mary and her parents were estranged, so I wondered what had suddenly happened, but if she could get refreshed at her parents' house, that's great for me. Spending time with his loving relatives would make Alan happy. "That's great. You're going to bring Alan, aren't you? I bet your parents are excited." "I'll bring him. While I'm there, could you check on Tom?" "Of course." Other than visiting Tom, I'll be alone for New Year's this year. "If you're going to spend the holidays alone, why don't you come to our house this year?" Emily responded. So I decided I would. Mary and I were both supposed to leave the house on New Year's Eve. I was sweating as I cleaned the house that day. Maybe it was because I was getting older, but cleaning felt like a chore I'd been putting off for a long time. Mary was gone for the morning because she needed to go shopping, so I ended up doing as much of the cleaning as I could on my own. When Mary got back from shopping, she started fidgeting with her watch. "Lucy, what time do you plan to leave?" she asked. "Aren't you done yet?" When should I leave? I don't have an exact time in mind. I'm not sure I'll finish now that I've done so much more. What about you? What time do you plan to leave?" "If you leave first, I'll double check that all the doors are locked and everything." "No, we don't have a specific time in mind, so we'll be fine." Mary, who seemed annoyed for some reason, pushed me outside as I was taking a break from cleaning the front door since my back was hurting. She also threw my stuff outside, as if to throw it at me, and she said, "Oh my God, how long are you going to keep cleaning, you slowpoke? Go freeze in the yard, you useless old woman. I was sweating profusely from all the cleaning and was dressed in thin clothes. So when I was thrown out into the yard, I was cold and chilly. It was snowing outside. Mary, let me in. I haven't changed my clothes. I'm freezing. You shouldn't be so slow. Why don't you just leave? My coat had been thrown out with my luggage, so I put it over my sweaty t-shirt for the time being. I couldn't get into the house because both the front door and the kitchen door were locked. I called Mary's name for a while, but she didn't respond, so I gave up. I decided to take a train to Emily's house because there was nothing else to do. I made it there. What's wrong? Why are you in such thin clothes? Emily asked, surprised to see me. Get inside. You'll catch a cold. Have you seen Bob? He was worried about you because it was snowing, so he headed to pick you up. He said he texted you. Only then did I realize I'd left my phone at home. Emily's son, Bob, is a college student. I felt bad for him because he'd driven all the way there to pick me up and we missed each other. Emily texted Bob and told him that I came by train. Then Bob told us something shocking. I called you several times, but you never returned my calls. Then I heard a ringtone coming from inside the house. I assumed you were sick, so I went inside on my own. The front door was unlocked for some reason. I found your phone in the living room and figured you weren't there, but then I heard noises coming from upstairs. I went up because I thought maybe it was a robber. It makes sense that Bob would think it's a robber since the door was unlocked. Then I noticed Mary and an unknown man hugging in the bedroom. What? Mary headed to her parents' home with Alan. I was taken aback and froze for a minute. They jumped off the balcony into the yard, wrapped in a comforter. So I dashed after them and looked around the yard, but I couldn't find them. They escaped. You let them escape? I don't think they got hurt because of the bushes and the snow on the ground. I locked the second floor door and was about to leave when I heard a noise from the next room and saw Alan. Alan was small enough to hide behind Bob. Sorry, my mom told me not to leave my room until after the new year. Alan was sitting in his room, surrounded by a bunch of sweets, bread, and juice. I brought Alan here because I thought he'd have more fun and be more comfortable here. I made sure to lock the front door. The key is under the flower pot. I'm glad nothing has changed since I was a kid. You did a good job of shutting the door. Mother, I believe it's time to discuss the future with Tom. Let's play some games, Alan. The two happily exited the room. I'm not interested in Mary's affair right now. They can talk it out or do whatever they want, but I can't forget what she did to Alan. We spent that night relaxing with Emily and the others because it was already dark. Emily, Bob, and I went back home the next morning. We chose to leave Alan with Emily's husband. When we got home, we noticed a figure at the front door. It was Mary. She was barefoot and trembling, wrapped in a comforter. Ah, there she is. You locked me out! Mary shivered in the cold and chattered her teeth. We went in the house so Mary could warm up. At this point, I couldn't even speak to her. Eventually, I broke the ice once Mary stopped shivering. I heard from Bob. Who were you with on the second floor? What are you talking about? You've got the wrong person. And Bob, what are you doing breaking into someone's house? Why didn't you press the intercom button? I noticed a pair of men's shoes near the entrance. But are those Tom's? Let me ask him. There was a thief in the house. I was about to start a fight when I was surprised. It was a close call. That's a big deal. I guess we need to call the cops. Emily took out her phone. Stop! I see what you're doing. Okay, you caught me. So who the hell is that man? Mary lowered her head and didn't respond. Didn't you jump off the balcony with that man? What happened to him? Where is he? He left a long time ago. Mary was surprised to be abandoned by the man she was having an affair with. And she spent the entire night barefoot, wrapped in a comforter, and he had left and gone home. Oh, he left you? How sad. Mary's face became flushed, like Bob's words struck a nerve. How could you not take care of Alan? Did you plan to lock him in the room while you were having fun? I'm not interested in your affair, but I just can't forgive you for what you did to Alan. I agree with her. He's in 4th grade. He can be alone just fine. I may be his mother, but that doesn't obligate me to prioritize him in my life. I have things I want to do as well. Just because he's my son doesn't give him the right to interfere. This caught me off guard. Emily, Bob, and I were all speechless by our rage and shock. Tom will be released from the hospital shortly. Alan and I were to stay at Emily's house until then. The day came for Tom to be released. We decided to have the discussion at our house, but I didn't want Alan to be there. Mary may say something hurtful to Alan. I decided to let him have some fun with Bob. I asked Bob to play with him. Emily, you're here? What's wrong? Emily told Tom the facts in a straightforward way. What do you mean, Mary? Is this true? Well, you were busy with work, and I was lonely. Please accept my apology. Mary, did you lock my mother out of the house in the snow? No, that's not it. And what about locking Alan in the next room for a long time while having an affair? Tom, Mom told you about the Friday night parties, didn't she? Why didn't you and Mary discuss it? I'm not sure how to go about it. The most important thing to remember is to never be afraid to ask for help. I'm tired from work too, and it's been a pain, and I'm sure Mary has a lot to say about living with Mom. You two are a perfect match. You both run away from problems and take the easy way out. Do you ever think about others? You two should talk about it and decide what you're going to do together. You're both adults. But you have to think about Alan. I won't let you turn your back on him. They decided to divorce a few days later. Mary was ordered to pay child support and alimony to Tom, who had custody. Mary admitted everything, and the divorce went smoothly. We never found out who she was cheating with. Mary refused to say anything, and Tom was too busy establishing a new life for himself and Alan to worry about it. But 3 months later, the other man's family found out about the affair, and we learned who he was. To my surprise, the other man was married to one of Mary's mom friends. It was one of the men who came to the Friday night parties sometimes. He and Mary continued their relationship after she and Tom divorced. The reason she easily agreed to the divorce was because she didn't want anything about the parties to come out. I don't understand how she could keep dating a man who abandoned her in the snow while she was freezing. Mary stayed with him even though she had to pay child support and alimony. The other man's wife demanded alimony and that she distance herself from him. Then I kept thinking about how the front door was unlocked that day. They were both too focused on the affair and had forgotten to lock the door. Bob would have rung the intercom if it had been locked. I told Bob that even if the door was unlocked and he suspected there was a burglar, he shouldn't have gone in, because he could have been attacked. Because I was worried about Grandma, he explained. Those two would have been surprised if the cops showed up out of nowhere and caught them cheating. I'm not experienced enough. Because, well, you know, he's a bit of a jerk, but he tries to make everyone laugh, and he treats Alan like his own brother. Mary had a lot of friends, and word of the affair spread quickly to everyone. She left the area, most likely because it was hard for her to live in the same city. Apparently, the group of friends harassed them quite a bit until they moved. They are living a life they can't afford in a new place. They have to spend money on Alan, pay alimony to Tom, and pay alimony to his ex-wife. Mary is at odds with her parents and is working tirelessly with no help. She called our house once. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm lonely and I'm suffering because I don't have anyone to turn to. Please forgive me. Please help me. Oh, it was one thing to want to see or talk to Alan, but it was another thing to want to avoid responsibility for what she had done. The kids of Mary's mom friends bullied Alan for a while because of Mary. Tom was able to talk to their parents, and the kids fixed things amongst themselves. But I wonder how much it broke Alan's heart for his mother to disappear and then be bullied by his friends. I thought about telling Mary how hard it is for Alan, but I doubt she would care. "Is that all you want to say?" I asked. "Don't contact me." That's all I said before hanging up the phone. I moved in with Tom and Alan. There have been ups and downs, and there will be more downs, but we will work together to overcome them. Tom also cut back on his work hours and began spending more time with Alan. I'd also like to thank Emily and her family for their help during all this. Emily said many things I should have said. Bob loves Alan, and the two became like brothers. I hope he will be raised right in a warm family. I'm glad I get to watch him grow up.
Hey, Roz. Let's just live as a couple without having kids. What? Look, you said that if we had a kid, you couldn't take care of me, so we just shouldn't have a kid. I was astounded by my husband's reasoning. He was so self-centered, only thinking of himself. Upon hearing that I wouldn't take care of him if we had a child, he came up with this. My husband has always been a source of trouble with his behavior. And to think, when things get tough for me, he does such things? I wish I had never married. I am Roz, 27 years old, a working mother in my first year of marriage. I live with my husband Aiden, who is 2 years older. We met at a party 5 years ago. He was so kind to me, a gentleman, and I was quickly smitten. Our dates were always tailored to my preferences, and he would adjust to my pace. I made an effort to be a woman who could match him. Until then, I had moved out of my parents' house, started living alone, and aimed to be an independent woman. I thought Aiden shared the same values. But after we got married, I realized we were fundamentally different in our thinking. When we only met once a week, I couldn't see his flaws. Living together after marriage, I started to notice all the things I disliked about Aiden. He is extremely clingy. Sure, there were signs when we were dating. I thought it was just him being playful, but I never imagined that was his real personality. In the morning, he wouldn't get out of bed, whining, "Roz, wake me up!" Or during meals, he'd want me to feed him, saying, "Ah." Even on dates, he'd cling to my arm. I don't remember marrying such a clingy, baby-like man. It's gotten to the point where I wonder if it's marriage fraud. Since we married, he seems to have noticed that I've become colder, and he started asking, "Hey, Roz, do you hate me now?" It's not like that, but can you stop using that falsetto voice to be cutesy? Why? You just liked me for my looks, Roz. Occasionally, Aiden would say that and show an exaggeratedly sad face. It makes me angry to be made out to be a bad person. I thought Aiden was kind and gentlemanly on our dates. I didn't know you were a baby inside. Can't help it, can I? Because Mom said I'd be disliked if I was the same at home. I was shocked by Aiden's statement. Could it be that his whole act was crafted from his mother Flora's advice? So, you were acting all along? Yeah, I slowly showed my true self and you seemed happy, Roz. I thought you had accepted the real me. With that, I felt sorry for Aiden. Without realizing he was being genuine, I had enjoyed myself. Turns out, even the dating plans were all Flora's ideas. Thinking I was being led around by Flora, I felt a surge of anger. But I didn't want to blame Aiden for that. Realizing his true nature after marriage and treating him coldly might have been my fault. No one wants their personality to be denied. Regardless of the act, even if he has a baby-like side, Aiden is Aiden. Since I chose to marry him, I thought I should make an effort to meet his personality halfway. So I made a suggestion. then you can be spoiled sometimes, but there are things I want you to do yourself. First, wake up on your own. Stop expecting me to help you dress. Don't cling to my arm on dates. And I want you to share the household chores. I don't understand why I have to look after you while working full-time and doing all the housework. Eh? But that's what mothers do, right? What? Even when I tried to meet him halfway, it was pointless if Aiden said things like this. It seemed he wanted to replace his mother, Flora, with me. I'm not your mother. I'll become one when we have a child, but then I won't be able to take care of you. What? No way. But if you get pregnant, you'll quit your job, right? You'll have time to look after me then. That's not how it works. When we have a child, you need to take care of yourself. If you don't like that, then that's divorce, okay? I told Aiden firmly and didn't allow for any arguments. After that, Aiden stopped acting like a baby for a while. But about a week later, he said, "Hey Roz, let's just live as a couple without having kids." What? You said you couldn't take care of me if we had a kid, right? So we just shouldn't have one. I've been thinking all this time about how Roz could take care of a child and me. But I was trapped in the fixed idea that you have to have kids when you're married. I do want kids, though. What? But I looked it up, and raising kids is hard. Even if it's hard, I think having your own child is a happy thing. No matter how difficult, I want to have kids. So? Aiden's eyes suddenly lit up. He didn't seem to be thinking of anything good. Even if it's hard, I don't want to take care of you while raising a child. When we have a child, you need to become a father, you know? Grow up, please. Aiden nodded with a face that didn't look convinced. Your father is a craftsman, right? Yes, he's always away and Mom felt lonely. Do you dislike your father? Yeah, I don't like him. He's always stern, and even though he's never home, he complains to Mom not to spoil me. We barely talked, just a bit at the wedding. I see. Then you should try even harder to be a father who can engage with his child. But my words didn't seem to reach Aiden. After that, I got a call from Flora. It looks like Aiden consulted her. You shouldn't say strange things to Aiden. Don't you feel sorry for him? I've always raised him carefully so he wouldn't be deprived of anything. Don't push your values on him. It's not like being kind to Aiden will reduce anything for you. I wanted to say that my private time would be reduced, but I held back. I didn't want to argue with Flora over something that was between me and Aiden. So I decided to ignore her and discussed our future married life with Aiden. However, Aiden seemed unwilling to change his current self, and he looked dissatisfied. Maybe it's over for us. The marriage I dreamed of. The gentlemanly and mature Aiden and me, working hard to match him, believing we could build a good home together. Was it wrong to have such ideals? One day, Aiden said with some difficulty, I'm going on a trip with my friends for the next holiday. We're going to Hawaii for 3 days and 2 nights. I wanted some distance from Aiden, so it was perfect timing. I decided to go back to my parents' house and gather my thoughts during that time. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll spread my wings a bit. You should relax too, Roz. You can't rest with me around, right? That's not true. It's lonely being alone. I'm going back to my parents. After that, Aiden was busy preparing for his trip. Packing, buying what he needed, while I felt some discomfort and slight pain in my stomach, but went on as usual. But the day before Aiden left for his trip, I collapsed from severe abdominal pain. I was in agony and couldn't move. I couldn't do anything by myself. Maybe it was lucky that I collapsed while shopping. It was a hassle for the people around me, but I was quickly taken to the hospital. Fortunately, I didn't need surgery, but I had to be hospitalized for about a week. As soon as my parents arrived, they called Aiden for me, but it was hard to get through. They tried contacting his office, but it was past working hours and no connection was made. I also called several times and left messages, but got no response. During this time, my parents went to my house to pick up some stuff for me. Aiden finally called at 9 p.m. that day. But not to my mother who had called him. He called my mobile phone instead. "Hello? Your mother-in-law called. What's going on?" "What do you mean what's going on? I'm being hospitalized." "Oh, come on. Are you just trying to get back at me because I complained to Mom about you? Using your own mother to manipulate. That's low, Roz." "I don't want to hear that from you. Anyway, I'm in the hospital right now. I need you to come tomorrow." "Are you testing me to see if I'll skip my trip and prioritize you? I won't fall for that." "Well, rest up at your parents' place then." "Wait, Aiden hung up without listening to me. Unbelievable. He just makes assumptions and treats me like I'm dishonest. If that's the case, what about Aiden, who tried to manipulate me using Flora? Besides, I really am hospitalized." Reluctantly, I sent Aiden a message with a hospital name and room number. As expected, Aiden didn't come. Calls wouldn't go through, and attempts at messaging apps just rang without answer. I can't believe he'd leave his hospitalized wife and go on a trip to Hawaii. I told my visiting parents about this. "That's terrible. Not believing you're in the hospital?" "But we don't know if he really went to Hawaii, right? Maybe you should ask his parents." I was hesitant to contact Flora. She would probably take Aiden inside, and I felt like I would be the one blamed. But I hadn't talked much to father-in-law, Glenn, and though I had his number, I wondered if I should call. Then my mom said, "Let me handle this," and dialed Glenn from my mobile phone. "Hello, this is Roz's mother. Roz is hospitalized, and we've been trying to contact Aiden, but he doesn't believe us. Moreover, we can't reach him at all today. He might have gone on a planned trip to Hawaii with his friends." After talking to Glenn for a while, my mom said, "He's coming over right now." Glenn arrived shortly after. "I'm sorry about my son. Didn't you contact my wife?" he asked. "It was hard to contact Flora because of a past incident with Aiden," I replied. Glenn's expression changed. "I can't believe Roz has been inconvenienced. My wife and son have been terribly rude. You must be anxious about the sudden hospitalization." "No, my parents are here." "In times like these, my son should be the one by your side. When I get home, I'll give him a talking to and make sure he's straightened out," Glenn said with a wry smile. He was nothing like the stern figure Aiden had described, but rather courteous and considerate. It was clear it wasn't an act, unlike Aiden's behavior. The next day, apparently scolded by Glenn, Flora came in tears. "I spoiled Aiden too much. I'm sorry. I blamed Roz one-sidedly." "It's okay, as long as you understand." I forgave Flora and we reconciled. I hoped this would lead to a better relationship between Flora and me. 4 days after I was hospitalized, if Aiden had gone to Hawaii, it was the day he would return. Glenn, who had work even on holidays, took a leave to come to my room. He was waiting for any contacts from Aiden to come straight to the hospital. Checking the airport flight information, we thought he'd probably arrive around noon, so we waited for that time. But no matter how many times Glenn tried, Aiden did not answer, and I also called several times. The phone would ring, so he must have landed, but there was no sign of him picking up. Then, a call came to my mobile phone from an unknown number, not registered in my contacts. I answered the phone apprehensively. "Hello? Who is this?" This is John, Aiden's boss. Aiden has been in your care? Roz, Aiden has died in an accident. I felt as if time had stopped at those words. What? What are you saying? An accident? Where? Aiden and I, along with 2 others, were in Hawaii. On the way back, since we were headed the same direction, we took the train together. After we got off at the nearest station and were walking back, he was hit by a car. I dropped my mobile phone in shock. Glenn picked it up and handed it back to me. Where is my husband now? He's at the XX General Hospital. That hospital was near where I was currently hospitalized. I quickly hung up, explained the situation to Glenn and the nurses, and after getting permission, headed to that hospital. On the way there, I thought maybe I should have been more accepting of Aiden's clingy behavior, or that we should have talked more. I didn't hate him from the bottom of my heart, even though I had started to dislike his true nature. There were plenty of chances to start over. But now, those chances are gone forever. As Glenn drove me to the hospital, I couldn't help but cry big tears. Glenn seemed to have contacted Flora immediately as well, and she was also worried. At the hospital reception, we asked, "Where is Aiden? He's in the mortuary, isn't he?" The staff at the counter looked surprised. Aiden? Oh, he was brought in earlier, but he was only slightly injured and could go home now. You must have been so worried hearing about the accident. Don't worry, he's probably just waiting to settle the bill. The female staff gave us a kind, reassuring smile. At that moment, I realized the previous call had been a hoax. We went to the waiting area with faces filled with anger, looking for Aiden. There was Aiden, laughing carelessly with a man who appeared to be his boss, waiting to pay. Forgetting the pain in my belly, I went up to Aiden and said, "This is a joke, right? I'm divorcing you. Don't ever show your face to me again," and left the spot. Glenn followed, warning, "You two better be ready for what's coming." Perhaps from the walking or the shock, the pain in my stomach intensified. Once back in my room, lying down, Glenn apologized to me repeatedly. "I'm sorry, it's all my and my wife's fault for such foolish behavior." "Glenn, please don't apologize anymore. Just please, let me get a divorce." "Of course, I'll make sure Aiden understands that." A while later, Aiden came to my hospital room. "Roz, you really were hospitalized?" "I sent you so many messages, and I told you on the phone. You never believed me until now." "I didn't think you'd be with Dad. When Dad called, I thought it was about you, so I checked the messages and came here." Glenn glared at Aiden with a frightening look. "What do you want now?" "To visit you." "And you think that makes what you did okay?" "What? Are you talking about what Manager John said? I asked him to do that. Since Roz lied about being hospitalized to stop me from going to Hawaii. I thought if that's the case, I'd tell a big lie too." Aiden, sweating profusely, glanced at me. All I could give him was a look of contempt. "What about the accident?" "It was true. When John was about to make that fake call to you, a car came crashing in out of nowhere. I freaked out and started crying. They took me to the hospital by ambulance, but I only had scrapes, no broken bones. They said the shock of the crash must have scared me." Your story was a lie, but my stomach pain is real. Seeing your face makes me feel sick, so could you please never appear before me again?" "Why? It's your fault for not accepting me as I am. I was just being myself. And yet, you tell me to grow up, to be a proper father if we had a child. I just wanted to be pampered forever." Then Glenn grabbed Aiden by the collar. "If that's the case, you should never have gotten married. Do you not feel any remorse for troubling Roz? You don't understand how we felt hearing you were dead. Someone like you is not my son. Get out now." After Glenn let go, a pale-faced Aiden fled the room, crying out for his mother, Flora. What a pathetic man. I was wrong to even consider accepting any part of that man's true self. Afterward, Aiden was lectured by the in-laws. It seems he even managed to anger Flora. Flora, who had never been angry with Aiden before, seemed to be very angry for the first time. Glenn had informed Flora of Aiden's death, so of course Flora arrived at the hospital after us. Like the rest of us, a female staff member informed us that his injuries were minor, but when Flora arrived, Aiden was already in my room. Understandably, Flora had called Aiden many times and searched for him. While I feel sympathy for the stress she's experienced, it's also Flora's responsibility for raising Aiden the way he is. Yet, as an adult, one should take responsibility for their actions. This also applies to Aiden's boss. After my discharge, I immediately contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce from Aiden. With the help of the in-laws, Aiden and I were officially divorced. Aiden ranted that if Roz had been more serious and conveyed her hospitalization, he would have understood, but Glenn silenced him with a shout. He remained pathetic until the end. Then I contacted Aiden's workplace through their consultation service to explain the situation. A senior manager took the call, and I explained everything to him. I don't mind him traveling with his boss, but telling a lie that someone died as harassment is not something to be taken lightly, especially as it came from a manager. Or is it part of your company culture to teach employees that such pranks are acceptable? The manager assured me they would take appropriate action. As a result, the manager was demoted to subsection chief and transferred to another department. Aiden was also demoted to a smaller branch. After the divorce, I returned to my parents' home. When I started living alone, I thought I had to be independent, so returning to the comfort of my parents' home felt reassuring. Without the need to be on guard, I could share household chores with my family and spend my free time on my hobbies. No longer being manipulated by Aiden's selfishness made me happy. One day, I might consider getting married again. Next time, I'll make sure to see the true nature of my partner before committing. For that, I want to show my true self from before marriage, without any pretense.